So what are we going to do in terms of the calculation? I want to talk a bit about the best way to do that, because there are a few different ways, but let's look at this case over here. So for this question, it's from an HSC question, 2017. We've got Jamal, and he's surveyed 8 households in his street, and he's asked them how many kiloliters of water they used last year. Okay, so here are the results. We've got them all over here. So we don't want to necessarily drop this table and do that. We could, but the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to bring up my calculator, my trusty FX82AU. So let's bring this guy up. Now what you want to do here is, once you have your calculator up, because we're working with statistics, we want to be in stats mode. Okay, so to do that, you're going to go to mode at the top right here, and you're going to press 2, go into stat, and then you press the first option, 1 bar, and it's going to bring up this table here. Okay, now once you've got that, if your table looks like this, I actually want you to make a change for me that's going to help us in the future examples. I want you to press shift and then mode, and then I want you to press the down arrow, and it's going to give you this option. I want you to press 3 for stat, okay, and I want you to turn frequency on, so press 1 for that. And what that gives us is this little second column over here, which is going to be much more useful for us when we input data with frequencies as well. Okay, so that's just to get that out of the way. Now in this mode, you have to input the data that we have. So we've got the numbers there. The order doesn't matter. So 220, 105, 101, 450, 37, 338, 151, and 205. Now you see how it's by default it's put in 1 as the frequency, so that's fine. We're going to leave that for now. There's only 1 of each of them. Okay, now once that's all in there, I'm going to press AC to get rid of that. Now here's where I can get the data. Okay, so to get the variables that I'm interested in, I press shift 1, and that brings up this little menu here. So you may have used you probably used 4 before, right? And that's actually where we're going to get all these different values, right? N is the number of values that I have. 2, that X bar you've seen before, that's the average. Now there's 2 over here that we have. We have 3 and 4, which both give you some different type of standard deviation. In general, and I have to emphasize in general, use 3, okay? So in general, use 3. So that's this one over here, right? And you notice actually it's the same symbol as the sigma that we had over here. So the same symbol as the sigma. It's actually referring to the population standard deviation. So just make a note of that. It's the population standard deviation. Now there are some situations where you may need to use 4, and 4 is the sample standard deviation. If you're ever required to use that, the question really needs to explicitly state that. It needs to say, oh, you're going to use the sample standard deviation, but by default, we use this one, okay, in our calculations. They will give you different values, so you can test that out. So when it says, what is the standard deviation of this data, we're just going to look for the population one. So I'm going to press 3 for that, and let's press equals. Okay, so for part I, sigma is equal to 127.357, lots of decimals. We want to round to 1 decimal place, so it's 127.4 to 1 dp. Okay, that's the standard deviation. Part 2, calculate the variance. Well, remember, what's the relationship? Okay, I gotta move that mic. I don't know. I need it like above me. I don't even know. I've got no clue, man. Alright, just stay there. So remember, what's the relationship? Well, remember, the variance is equal to the standard deviation all squared, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for the variance, look at sigma squared. And so I'm just going to square this value here. I can do it straight from the calculator, and I get a very big number. So it's 16219.859. They haven't given me something to round to, so I'll just say that's equal to 16219. Let's round to 1 dp as well, so 0.9 to 1 dp. Okay. All right. So that's standard deviation and variance for question where they give you values. Now, you notice in this one, they have, again, asked for the standard deviation and variance, but this time they've given it to us in a table. And so this is where the frequencies are going to come in really handy. So just to make sure we reset everything, let's just go into, so press mode and then stat again, should reset all the data, and then we can actually just copy this table out. The easiest way I find to do it is once you press equals, it gives you into the next row. So I'm just going to actually put in all the numbers here that I see. So we're looking at sport practice hours each week. I guess I should say hours, hey, in the question. Hours. So how many hours do you play sport each week? And there's no one who plays 1. There's a lot of people who play 4, it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and now change these frequencies. So you just navigate with your arrow buttons again. So we go 0, 2, 4, 10, 3, 2. And see, that's a lot easier than inputting that number in multiple times. I just edit the frequency and then I'm done. Okay, so then let's go back to shift 1 for accessing that information. So I'm going to go to 4 var. And remember, I want the population, so let's press 3. And I get this number over here. So you see the numbers a lot smaller now, right? Okay, our spread is a lot less. If you go look up to these ones, you saw the numbers were quite far apart, right? We had a 37 and then we had like a 450. But now this one over here, right, the numbers just range from 1 to 6. That's the different hours that we put in. There's the different values, right? So it makes sense that the spread is a lot less. So the standard deviation is going to be 1.0454. And again, let's round to 1 dp. And then the variance, sigma squared, I'm just going to go ahead and square that. Won't be much bigger, will it? 1.0929. So that's just 1.0921 dp. Awesome. Okay. So that's looking at standard deviation and variance. Now I mentioned that sometimes we may need to use the sample one, and here's an example of that. Okay. So this is from an HSC 2005 question. And we're looking at 9 students who are selected at random from school, and their ages were recorded. What is the sample, first part, what is the sample standard deviation? So remember, we can put in our numbers as per normal. It's only the last step that needs to change, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So make sure you clear your data again. So mode, stat, 1 bar. Okay. So let's put these numbers in. So we've got 12. By the time I put this in, it probably would have been easier just to put them all as one frequency. That works too. Hopefully I've done all this right. And 2 16s. So I've got 5, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's good. Cool. Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, if you just want to input them in line by line, that's fine too. Okay, so let's get out of that. So then shift 1. 4 for var, and then the sample standard deviation, that's 4 now I'm going to press. And it's 1.69. We went to 2 decimal places, that's right. So that's, typically I write out the whole calculator display anyway, and then I write it afterwards. So sample standard deviation is equal to 1.69148. That's just 1.69 to 1 dp. Just for curiosity's sake, let's just see how different the population one is. Boom. Not too different, right? Again, like the differences is very nuanced. It just kind of takes a different total number of values from recollection, something like that. I'm actually not 100% sure, so I'll have to look into that one. All right, so part 2, this is what I mean by sometimes they like to ask these like explain questions or definition questions. They like to sneak them in. So for part 2, briefly explain what is meant by the term standard deviation. So notice how it's a brief explanation. They're not looking for an essay. So with the standard deviation, I think a few keywords you want to explain. So first of all, standard deviation is a measure of spread. And the other thing you want to think about is, okay, how is it actually calculated? How is it calculating this measure of spread? What it's actually doing is taking a particular value and it's subtracting away from the average, right? That's what the whole thing at the beginning we were doing with this x minus x bar thing, right? This how far apart from the average are these particular scores, right? Obviously, there's other stuff we do in between, but that's the general gist of it. So I think you want to make some mention of that here. It's a measure of spread, which determines how far each of the values are from the mean. Cool, and that's standard deviation and variance. Hope that helped.